Welcome, I'm Sabrina Monarch, and this is the astrology forecast for July 29th to August 4th, 2020. I'm all about helping people bring more magic and enchantment into their lives, and I hope that this astrology forecast assists you in doing just that. Since you're here, please like and subscribe. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when more videos come out. And as this video sparks different ideas or reflections, I would love to hear what you think and what you're getting out of it, so please leave that in the comments. I'm going to pull up my slides. I write these weekly forecasts at monarchastrology.com. Hold on, I'm going to fix the video. I write these weekly forecasts at monarchastrology.com, and I recently branched out to YouTube to bring a video and audio version of them. So you will catch me reading the forecast. That's what I'm doing here today. And let's get started on that. So the moon is growing full in Aquarius this week, and this calls for a change of headspace, whether we intentionally seek it out or it finds us by surprise. So Aquarius is a sign of innovation, and its ruling planet in modern astrology, Uranus, does relate to shocks, potentially even trauma. So something that kind of rattles us or shakes us. And so it's kind of like a week to expect surprises. But you can also be proactive about it and use this energy to shake things up where things have gotten stagnant, or where you're just not moving forward and nothing's happening and you need to step away to find the progress that you're looking for. So it might be experiences of play as the sun is in Leo and the sun is casting its light on this full moon. It may be experiences of play that trigger the full moon's light bulb epiphany moment, this fresh, radical, innovative state of mind. It may prove crucial to take a break from, quote, normal life. And I've been thinking a lot about normal life in quotes this week in particular because of some research that I'm doing, which I'll talk more about at the very end of this. But what is normal life, right? We have this agreed upon collective reality, but it is a construction. It is not the only reality that we have access to. And we can enter other realities or alternate realities when we are in different states of mind, when we are playing a game even. And if you find these play states this week, that's where a lot of this full moon activity is going to be popping off. So it may prove crucial to take a break from normal life and throw ourselves into activities which have no other purpose than those activities in of themselves. Only in this reprieve from the anxieties of maintaining normal life, we can access this critical insight, which allows us to return to the demands of everyday life, but refreshed and discharged of unnecessary stress. And a lot of our stress is unnecessary. Maybe too, we gained a vision that we can weave into ordinary or normal life to upgrade the routine programming of our lives into something more inspired. So that's your assignment for the week. Find an altered state of consciousness, an altered state of mind that comes from being in a playful aspect of your reality, or literally just having fun, to say it really simply, which sounds so basic, but I promise that's where the activity is happening. Isn't it always though? So a few announcements before we begin. There's just hours left on this campaign. You see it says 63 hours to go, but I'm publishing this like 12 or so hours before it's going to come out. Sorry, I feel like I have like a cat hair on my face, which is something that happens in my reality, as I do have a cat. So I feel better now. I am fundraising or crowdfunding a year ahead of astrology forecasts and Magic of the Spheres podcast episodes, which is my podcast. And we're doing pretty good. As you can see, I would love to get to 100 or more backers by the time that this campaign ends. So if you've been enjoying my content, please go check this out. I'm leaving the link in the notes. I'm offering tons of astrology downloadables and astrology readings and discounted tuition to 2 upcoming courses, which I'll tell you about in a minute. Sorry, did I say I was doing announcements now? In case I didn't, that's what I'm doing. And I'll get back to the astrology of this week in just a moment. So one of the classes is called Online Presence as Performance Art. And this is to re-enchant your relationship with the internet and with your creative presence on it. This is a class for you if you have a reason to exist publicly on the internet, such as if you have services that you sell online or you meet with people remotely, like I do as an astrologer, giving people astrology readings, or even if you're marketing for your brick and mortar business happens online. And how to get comfortable existing on the internet, how to even have fun doing it, and how to overcome your psychological blocks and fears around it, which I promise everyone has when it comes to showing up in public. So this is also about like really getting into the magical side of participating on the internet, having a more spiritual relationship with it, to step back from this mass malaise or disenchantment or cynicism about the internet and inhabit it in a much more fun way, basically. So the course page for that will also be in the notes, and you can access this at a discount through the Kickstarter, but time is running out. So if you're watching this at the end of the week, you may have to sign up full price. Also, the Evolutionary Astrology Intensive is coming up. This will be the 6th run of the course. And it's a super transformative, high impact course. I'm leaving the link to the course page in the notes as well, and you can read student testimonials. But this is like a deep dive into the whole system of evolutionary astrology. So it's Pluto and lunar node focused astrology to get into your past life narrative, what you've been experiencing in prior lives that is directly thematically connected to what you're working with in this life, and what are your lessons? How are you evolving in this life? So I love teaching this course, and I'm really excited to begin a new group. One more announcement before we get into this week's astrology. I had Achyuta Bhava Dasa on the podcast, Magic of the Spheres, and we talked about prayer. I wanted to have this conversation because I think that having a direct relationship to the universe, to source, to God, however you name that, can be one of the most profound things that we can do here in this incarnate existence. So I just wanted to have a conversation about it. And I love Achyuta Bhava's work. I've been following him and having conversations with him since 2016. He teaches Hellenistic astrology and is quite knowledgeable and full of wisdom. And I really enjoyed this conversation. And you can tune into this where you listen to podcasts or check the notes below. So here's our week. On July 30th, Mercury is activating the current Jupiter-Neptune sextile. And I wrote about the Jupiter-Neptune sextile in more detail on the blog last week, which you can find at monarchastrology.com. I didn't come here on video last week, but you can always, it's super, super rare. I've only missed one forecast week in the last 5 years, so you can pretty much count on them being at monarchastrology.com. But Mercury in Cancer is opposing Jupiter in Capricorn and also trining Neptune in Pisces. So Mercury is kind of swooping in and activating this ongoing Neptune-Jupiter sextile, which has a lot to do with crises in faith and spiritual expansion, but also dealing with maybe the more difficult sides of spirituality. And for a lot of people, you know, for what I wrote about last week, there's cynicism and pessimism and this kind of pervasive like fear of the world, or feeling that the world is such a sad place and that we should also be sad, and that we shouldn't have hope. Like there's a quicksandy kind of feeling, and it's also considered normal discourse too. It's considered being, you know, present with what's happening in the world. But I believe, and, you know, for what it's worth, I don't think I'm the only one who believes this, that we create this world perpetually. We put our intentions into it. We put our karma, we put our action into it. And we're informed by our beliefs. We're informed by our beliefs of what we think is possible or what the trajectory of the world is. So would it not be expansive and meaningful and potentially like world building to have a vision of what the world could be and a vision of ourselves in that world, and to call upon those threads in our day-to-day life? So here's what I wrote for this aspect. Mercury is activating the current Jupiter-Neptune sextile. Cancer, so Mercury in Cancer. Cancer is a water sign, and water molecules like to cohere. They like to stick together. So you can feel this magnetism if you get some water droplets on your thumb and forefinger and slowly pull them apart and put them back together, and you'll see this natural magnetism that exists between water. They just like to be together. And the water element symbolically, also correlates with our capacity for empathy, our ability to cohere emotionally with other people. So back to this pessimism thing and coherence. In relationships or group settings, it's possible that people bond over sharing misfortunes or over complaining. It's actually a really common way of connecting. And I've had multiple clients in the last week talk to me about this theme of group complaining and their place within that. So it feels like it's up in the air. And what is your skill level at disrupting this pattern? Do you have a way of inviting people into more uplifting conversation? Are you comfortable with sharing your own happiness in environments where people are not in as elevated a state? Or do you kind of like dim it down when you notice that you're like smiling in a room where people are not, And there's obviously situations where that kind of empathy is asked for, but when it's the day in, day out routine of collective conformity pessimism, maybe not as much. So no need to be rude or not compassionate about disrupting this, because it's not always there to disrupt. But if it's a routine pattern and it's the way that you connect with people and it's what you talk about, it's like gossip and complaining, then that might be a thing. Often people want to shift that in their lives. And you might need to find people that want to have more uplifting conversation, right? So think of this too. If you were to tune out of the specific words that people, including yourself, are using in a group setting and tune in more to the song. The song, like what kinds of songs are we singing? What does it actually feel like? And this inner recognition can guide us to feel into where we are generating warmth and happiness and expansion, or perhaps where we are pining and mourning, etc. Just noticing and being aware of what songs we are singing increases our capacity to change the songs that we're singing. Complaining or composing scathing, searing examinations of something can produce a kind of chemical high, but is it necessary and is it helpful? And when we possess grievances, so grievances here means things to complain about, we may feel the most practical or real way to address it is to focus on it and then fix it. This overlooks the possibility, however, that by consistently focusing our awareness on elevated emotions, so gratitude, awe, love, things like this, that we actually change the entire playing field of our lives and practically enter another reality, one with less to complain about and more flow and ease around amplifying love and abundance as opposed to always tackling problems. So anyone who works on altering their vibration or manifestation activities often involve this too. You can kind of change the vibrational frequency of your life. I've been playing around a lot with it in this last week, and angel numbers appear everywhere. So that's one of the things, if you start to notice a lot of synchronicities and things just start to flow easier, like that's the kind of thing you can do. You can surf reality a little bit differently when you consistently focus your emotional reality on harmonic thoughts of beauty and gratitude and things like this. And And of course, it is a practice, and there's often an element of rewiring brain chemistry at play if you've habituated to other emotional states like depression, for example. And I speak from experience with that as well, with working to rewire depression, so it is possible. But just know that that whole kind of changing your vibration or thinking differently is a practice, and it's going up against whatever habits you've already built up. Okay, soapbox over on that one. And then on July 31st, we have the sun in 9 degrees of Leo, trine Chiron, retrograde in 9 degrees of Aries. And this is at 6:15 p.m. And this transit could relate to some more gentle healing themes around self-expression. We might feel encouraged to put ourselves out there in a new way and either get some validation and positive response, or regardless of what happens, feel proud of ourselves and feel some more self-esteem that we did something that we were afraid to do, that we put ourselves out there. And if we come to a place of grace within ourselves, so believing in ourselves, acting in integrity, honoring our creative impulses and inspirations, it can often just truly be disarming in our persona, how we're coming across, whether that's in the moment or whether it's something that has a time lapse, like something you put out onto the internet, if that makes sense. Okay, August 1st. Mercury in 23 degrees of Cancer, opposite Pluto, retrograde in 23 degrees of Capricorn, and this is at 3:52 a.m. And if you haven't seen it already, I would really recommend the AOC video of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez giving her statement to the congressman who called her a, quote, fucking bitch. It's an amazing video, and AOC is one of those people that I just get chills, full body chills when I hear her speak. But I thought of this video in ways that I could unpack a lot. You know, when we look at Cancer Capricorn, we are looking at this axis of emotional maturity and emotional labor and care. And Pluto in Capricorn is this longer transit that's been happening since 2008 that is bringing this wrecking ball through society. It's uplifting and turning over collective social norms. It's a transition of patriarchal thinking and patriarchal norms. Capricorn is not a patriarchal sign inherently, but Capricorn is like things that happen historically that create an effect that lasts over time. So because patriarchy has been a pattern for so many centuries, it has this kind of grip on the psyche and on the way that society is set up. And Pluto in Capricorn is like getting this incisive, like laser vision into that. And through that insight, change is happening. So a lot of these conversations about deconstructing society and social norms, you know, very Pluto in Capricorn. And so Mercury in sweet Cancer, opposite that, there's, you know, Mercury Pluto is like incisive language and penetrating language and really getting into the heart of things, powerful language that creates transformation. And like I said, AOC has that quality. You know, I wouldn't just put that archetype on it, but, you know, this sense of her words are powerful. And it was a really powerful public speech. So I wanted to direct your attention to that video. But this aspect between Mercury and Pluto highlights the intersection between emotional intelligence and awareness of systemic social patterns and histories. So take, for example, this video of AOC. Her feelings were not personally hurt by the incident, but she is specifically not standing for language that has systematically been leveraged against women, designed to keep them in their place in a patriarchal society. Just as one example. And of course, these the ways that systemic social values are in our language or are in social norms, it's often through further development of emotional intelligence that we have the capacity to break down these things and imagine change. So August 2nd, 2020, of course, we're in 2020, sorry. The sun in 10 degrees of Leo will square Uranus in 10 degrees of Taurus. I have nothing to say about this. This is just the image. And the reason that I have nothing to say is because the full moon on the very next day, Uranus is still square the full moon's axis, the sun and the moon. So I'm just going to talk about it there, but I felt like this image was the vibe. So August 3rd, full moon in 11 degrees of Aquarius at 8:59 a.m. with Uranus square the sun and the moon. This is a time to get inventive. When a paradigm, which is a way of life, a way of understanding life, a model of reality, when this stops being adaptive and can no longer hold reality in a supportive way, so like a ship in the ocean with holes in it and it's starting to sink, we are at the precipice of a breakthrough when this reality structure around us is breaking down. Many of our illuminations, revelations, and breakthroughs come from a place of inner freedom or playfulness, like I was speaking of earlier. Or like Einstein said, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. We have to be in a different frame of mind. And that different frame of mind comes from having fun or following our excitement. So if you follow the logic, having fun literally creates new worlds. The Leo Aquarius Axis, which is the axis that this full moon is on, the sun and moon are always opposite in opposite signs during a full moon. This axis, Leo Aquarius, is what I call a drama trauma axis as well, which is worth being aware of. On this axis, we are the stars of our own epic dramas, and events that go against our preference or against our plans, things that we don't like, that maybe they shock and rattle us, they veer from the script of our own desires and hopes. These things can take on epic and tragic proportions. And by that, we could say literally, or we could say the story that we have about it. Of course, there are misfortunes and things that happen in reality that we can say are not good. But the further and further we get detached, the more neutral a lot of things are. And then there's our stories about it. So it's one thing to grieve. It's another to inflate events in our lives by remembering them over and over again with increasing flashes of lightning and thunder. I know I do this. You know that the memory that you play over and over again and it just becomes more and more dramatic. Tap into your creative capacity to tell your own narrative differently, where that might empower you. We all have stories about ourselves. This can be a very creative thing, and it can launch us into a new reality when we tell our story differently. Even if you flirt with a fiction, you imagine a new story, you can begin to create it, whether or not it's real. Think of a narrator in a film describing the protagonist's journey. The narrator is both an omnipotent voice, but also a highly biased one. And that bias is creative, and it's one of the characters in the show or the movie. Use it to activate a different thread of your own destiny. Maybe you even write about yourself in third person if that helps you see yourself in a more objective lens. And objective is a word I have a hard time with because what's truly objective, but just more removed, more detached. And with detachment in Aquarius comes freedom with its other side of dissociation. So there is a difference between detachment and dissociation, but I trust you to pick a path of detachment that works well for you. And then Mercury, later this day, 27 degrees of Cancer, Mercury will be opposite Saturn retrograde in 27 degrees of Capricorn at 2 p.m. Pacific. And Saturn can relate to a tendency to focus on the negative because it also relates to our development of boundaries and basically our awareness of what we want to say no to. Sometimes boundaries take the form of mental discipline. We might make a choice that there are certain thoughts that we're not going to invest in anymore when they pass through our mind, certain stories or certain thoughts that we are not going to build stories and emotions around. One who decides not to worry or not to be stressed out and can carry through with this is doing this. can carry through with it, or at least address it every single time it comes up, as much as you're focusing on it. This is that whole like rewiring the brain thing. So mental discipline involves positive reinforcement, moving toward the goal and things that support the goal, as a way to refocus away from whatever is being left behind. We might be aware of what not to do, but we also might want a game plan of what to do instead. So what I mean by this is, personally, I have been playing with not being stressed out, of just stopping being stressed. And so when I catch myself being stressed, I just stop. I wish I could explain more, because I know that there have been times where I've been stressed and I would be like, how can I just stop? It's like being in meditation when you just watch your thoughts go by and you don't latch onto them. Exactly that, except when you're not meditating and you're just going throughout your day. Now, is stress helping me get something done? Maybe in some logical way, being stressed is the way to but it's not the best way to get to the destination. So if I'm not going to be stressed out, then what am I going to focus on instead? Trust, peace, happiness, gratitude. If I have something else to focus on, that's a way to rewire the thought train. So mental discipline, positive reinforcement, know what you're letting go of and know what you're moving toward. Mental discipline involves the capacity to acknowledge the contradicting thoughts that do come up and not just stuff or suppress them, but actually transform them. Do you have ways that you know how to dialogue with your own mind, to change your own mind? Activities where we write from one voice and then offer a response in a different voice can be particularly helpful. One example could be writing down your fears from the voice of the fear itself, and then talking to that fear from like a loving voice that is talking that fear down. Or you can talk in the first person about your fears and then write back as a coach who's coaching you through them, even though it's just you. And we like to be empowered by the symbol of having someone else do it for us. And by all means, that can be great too. That simple activity of doing that kind of thing for ourselves routinely, we will start to change the contents of our mind and think more intentionally. And then on August 4th, Mars in 19 degrees of Aries will square Jupiter retrograde at 19 degrees of Capricorn at 6:06 a.m. Pacific. And while Mercury in Cancer has opposed the Capricorn lineup this week, I've been exploring themes above, or in this video, of self-care through optimism and challenging our pessimistic thinking, a process that might be work if we have a lot to unpack. Mars in Aries brings in a considerable boost of energy that is in dynamic tension with our beliefs about what is wrong in ourselves or in our life. So Mars in Aries is the considerable amount of energy, and it's in this 90-degree confrontation with Jupiter in Capricorn, which could be our beliefs about what's wrong, why we're not functioning, what's wrong with the ship, there's holes in the ship, let's fix it, like that, energy. And this can relate, this tension between these two planets, to increased willpower to overcome obstacles if that's our agenda. If we're using the kind of like, oh, we can do this, we can, work through this energy. But Mars can also just amplify an existing pessimistic process and bring more juice and more frustration to it. So there might be a decision on our parts this week, what kind of victory we desire, and then we can move toward that. There might be a place where we are feeling freshly feeling an instinct or an impulse to do something, but we are also aware of all the possible ways that it could go wrong or how it's not possible. And this is not really an unheard of circumstance. Many challenges have obstacles right from the start. The question is how we decide to work with these obstacles. Do we believe that things should just be easier, or do we believe that we might be encountering just the right challenges at just the right time for our spiritual growth? Whatever spin we give on it, these can be highly draining stories or highly energizing ones. And be mindful of places where you think in extremes, such as it's not possible to be as affluent and wealthy as I'd like and also be ethical. Is it even true? If accepted as truth, that abundance or affluence and integrity are mutually exclusive, then we're unlikely to generate plans toward greater financial stability because of the internal block or hangup that we have around it. So in this example, we would benefit from being more curious about how abundance operates in our life in an integrity-based way, how they can be connected, and then really energizing ourselves on the pursuit of knowledge around this question and discovery around it, instead of talking ourselves out of our process from the gate by just believing it's not possible. And then later this day, Mercury enters Leo at 8:32 a.m. So what day are we on? It's still August 4th. After a longer season of Mercury in Cancer due to the last Mercury retrograde being in this sign, Mercury enters the playful and expressive sign of Leo. Mercury in Leo is a more provocative communication field. The way we speak can be more designed at getting a rise out of people and actually getting their attention. And you can just think of how cats act, or cats pawing at you. If you have a cat or know a cat, or you can just imagine, they're kind of, they're very playful, and Leo relates to the lion. So feline energy is Leo energy. We're invited to invoke some like flashiness or some jester energy or some extra energy in general, and perhaps to do so in a way that diverts just enough from how others are doing it, not in like a competitive based way, but more in kind of like a, Gemini is always fractaling out and creating other possibilities. So there's one thing here and it doesn't just exactly twin it, but it kind of changes it just a little bit. And like mutates from it. So a lot of evolution of conversation happens because people aren't just mimicking each other's points, but they're being like, oh, okay, and this, they're yes-anding it. So that's what Mercury in Leo is doing. Like, there's this fun trope over here. Well, let me add this thing to it. And Mercury works to generate novelty constantly. It's part of its charm. And Mercury in Leo is just doing so in a way that is particularly fun and playful. Another thing to think of here is that we have the power to think of an energy that we want to create before we enter a circumstance, and to bring that energy in. So to premeditate what kind of energy you want to bring into a conversation, and experiment with this before you get on a call with someone in general, or before you talk with people in general. And think about what you want to create and get really clear on it at a vibrational meditative level, and then see how the conversation goes. It's really actually magic. I learned that in like a business book about high performance that I got as a free gift for ordering groceries online one time. And like the book itself was kind of a dry read, but I was just kind of getting like little like nuggets from it. And this one was like this, you know, high performance businessman talking about how before he gets onto a call, he thinks about the kind of energy that he wants to create. And it's like, you know, that actually is like a cool idea. And if you've, it just kind of gave me a sense of a lot of people I know who I consistently have like really positive, energizing interactions with, and how deeply intentional they are about the energy that they bring into a room. So I think Mercury and Leo could be that kind of thing of, how do you enter conversation? What energy are you bringing? So this is the forecast. I have a few more announcements because honestly, it's just a really busy time of year. There's the Kickstarter, there's these courses, and I'm going to be speaking at 2 upcoming summits that I want to tell you about. So the first one is the Astrology of Purpose and Power, and this is August 7th to the 9th. And you can join me and 17 other women astrologers as we talk about what it means to rise up at this moment in time. I'm going to be talking about play and the evolution of alternate realities. So back to what I said about how I'm thinking a lot about what's normal life. Well, normal life is based off of work, getting things done, and a basic sense of anxiety. And we leave normal life when we watch a film or when we play a game, or just do anything that's for fun. And then we say, you know, it's less real than the normal world. But the normal world is just a world among many. And when we play, we actually create new worlds. And so there's different ways that we can access play states frequently, habitually perhaps, and weave those play states into our life. And that is what I believe anyone who's an artist, and a lot of business people, I think, are doing that. When you have a vision in your mind of something that doesn't exist in this world yet, and you cultivate it, and you get into the character of it, you inhabit it fully, and you breathe it into this life, into this normal world, then you're being a creator. So how can you use play states to change your life? That's what I'm going to be talking about. And there's going to be a bunch of awesome talks. Follow the link, a special link in the notes to sign up through my affiliate link. And you can see there all the descriptions of the talks. And it's free. It's free unless you want to buy like the all access pass, which I recommend, and you should do before, like you should do as soon as possible, because I think the price raises soon. And the next summit is Fresh Voices in Astrology. And I'm going to be speaking about the lunar nodes, the nodes of the moon, which are basically my favorite thing to look at in natal charts, and a huge, I think of it as a practice. My talk is called, what is my talk called? I thought I had it written down here. Something like Karma in Practice, because the way that we work with our lunar nodes is really how we're living out our karma through our personality. Our personality is not the deepest part of who we are. It's our habitual behaviors and thoughts and feelings that influence the ways we participate with reality, and the ways that we participate with reality create cause and effect, which is karma. So I want to walk you through what the lunar nodes are and how to work with them in your chart. So this is the forecast and all the announcements. Just want to remind you to leave a comment. What stuck out to you? What did you get from this? And like and subscribe. And also know that I, in addition to writing these forecasts and Magic of the Spheres podcast, I've become increasingly focused on one-to-one mentorship work, helping people over an extended period of time move toward their goals using the language of astrology and getting a deeper relationship with their own natal chart. So if you're interested in working with an astrologer in an ongoing way to move toward a goal in your life, and that can be something that you're seeking to create. I've been helping people with their online presence. And it can also be some blocks that you're seeking to move toward, things that are really keeping you stagnant or stuck in life, and you want to shift that up. So I am accepting new clients, and you can email me at sabrina@monarchastrology.com to set up a consultation call. Thank you so much for watching this, and I'll catch you next time.